She just wanted a quiet trip, but sat next to a mysterious CEO who transformed her life in 30 days. Emily Johnson's heart raced as she stepped onto the plane, her sketchbook clutched tightly to her chest. She longed for a simple getaway to Chicago, a city teeming with creativity and inspiration, after a relentless year of deadlines and disapproving glances from parents regarding her choice to teach art. The pressures had worn her down, leaving her questioning the value of her profession in a world that often deemed it frivolous. Boarding felt simultaneously like liberation and suffocation. She hoped the city would reignite her artistic fire even as she braced for the weight of her own doubts. Settling into her seat, she stole a glance at the man next to her, impeccably dressed with a watch that probably cost more than her last paycheck. A CEO, no doubt, a quick judgment tugging at her mind. She hesitated, feeling the familiar churn of uncertainty. Why did she dread these men? Was it their success, their tight grip on power that made her feel small? Or was it her own fear that her dreams were unworthy of such company? This internal clash set her on edge, and she nervously flipped through the pages of her sketchbook, seeking solace in the familiar strokes of her pencil. Then, in an unexpected shift, he spoke. "Nice sketchbook. Are you an artist?" His voice was warm, but she caught an edge of something deeper, something familiar, something she thought she could finally engage with. The conversation started lightly, but soon waded into deeper waters, the kind that made her question everything. Jake Reynolds shared stories that sliced through the corporate veneer, lies and betrayals buried beneath the success and accolades. As he spoke, she realized she was drawn not just to his charm, but to the authenticity behind his struggles. Emily sensed an urgency in their conversation, a longing for understanding that made her forget their disparities. Who was she to him? A soft-hearted teacher? Her self-doubt mixed with a strange stirring of hope. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Maybe they were more alike than she had dared to admit. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With every shared truth, Emily felt her walls softly crumble. Jake revealed the constant strain of expectations, trapped in a world where performance was all that mattered, much like her own daily battle within the classroom, fighting to prove that art could indeed matter. But then, the stark reality of their opposing paths tightened within her as the trajectory of their flight shifted towards the chaos of her own ambitions. What was she really willing to risk? The faint buzz of incoming messages pulled Jake's phone from his pocket, and with it hung the weight of a pending decision. An opportunity loomed for Emily, should she dare grasp it. The idea of entering the art world with connections Jake could provide set her heart racing. But what would that mean for their fragile connection? Should she cling to the security of unglamorous art teaching or seize the unpredictable? As the plane descended, time slipped away, leaving her swaying between fear and exhilaration. Would she claim her place in the narrative she had yet to write, or would the fear of the unknown silently march her right back into the shadows? The tension thickened like storm clouds approaching a quiet town, and Emily sat there, on the brink of transformation but paralyzed by doubt. In the depths of his gaze, Jake reflected a potential path, uncertain yet enticing, if only she could summon the courage to step into the light. After the plane landed, Emily's heart felt heavier than she anticipated. As the passengers filed out, she lingered for a moment, staring at the now silent runway. Chicago was alive with possibilities, but standing there, she felt like a ghost on the fringes of her new life. Jake's presence lingered in her thoughts, a reminder of the bold choices that lay before her, yet the fear of stepping outside her comfort zone wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Adrenaline surged as she made her way through the bustling terminal, the cacophony of voices and laughter echoing around her. With her sketchbook still clutched tightly, she paused to take in the vibrant art displayed in the airport. Pieces created by local artists adorned the walls, each one inviting her to imagine the stories behind them. Was her art worthy of such public admiration? A rush of inspiration flowed through her blood. She pulled out her phone, contemplating sending a quick message to Jake, but fear held her back. What would she even say? She feared sounding too eager, or worse, vulnerable. Instead, she opened her sketchbook. "Just draw," she whispered to herself, letting her pencil take the lead. Lines began to flow freely, creating half-formed ideas that still held weight. Inking out that anxiety felt oddly cathartic and reminded her of her purpose. The city was breathing around her, charging her with electricity she hadn't felt in years. Perhaps it wasn't the city that needed to reignite her soul. Perhaps it was the calling she had let fade too deeply into the shadows. After a caffeine-fueled afternoon of sketching in the quiet cafe, she wandered into galleries that filled the streets with artistic life. Each display resonated with her, but one particular exhibition caught her breath. A wall hung heavy with portraits, showing the rawness of emotion, the artist's capability to wield honesty through paint and canvas. As she stepped closer, criticism bubbled in her mind. Who was she to think she could ever be part of this world? An inner voice echoed her self-doubt, reminding her of her parents' disapproval and her own hesitations. The comfort of teaching, while safe, felt suffocating, like a quilt stitched together by the fear of rejection. But in her soul, she felt something shift. Inspiration hit with clarity, igniting a spark she had forgotten existed. What if she transformed her self-doubt into a genuine voice in her art? What if she used her experiences to create something fresh and honest? A sense of resolve filled Emily as she stepped out of the gallery, and in that moment, she decided to reach out to Jake. She could be more than a timid teacher. She could embrace her art as a powerful reflection of herself. "Hey, Jake," she typed, her heart racing. "I'd love to hear more about your world and maybe—" But a pause held her fingers over the send button. What if he dismissed her intent? The need for acceptance clashed with a budding sense of autonomy. Was she truly ready to embark on this new path, or would hesitation chain her to her old fears? As the sun began to dip below the skyline, she felt a deep pulse of determination surge through her veins. It was time to confront her fears head-on, and perhaps the next moment could define her course for the future. The decision teetered on the edge of a precipice. Taking a breath, she pressed send, feeling an exhilaration that mingled with dread. Would Jake respond? And what if he said yes? The next chapter awaited, and with it, the dawning of her own awakening in the realm of art. Yet, as she walked away with the uncertainty mingling with excitement, she couldn't shake the nagging thought. What if Jake had intentions that didn't align with hers? And what would that mean for her burgeoning ambitions? The air crackled with anticipation, and she felt a fork in the road ahead. One path leading into the light of her desired future, the other back into the comfort of the familiar shadows. As the evening descended over Chicago, the flickering lights of the city twinkled like stars beckoning her deeper into this new life. Emily felt a strange melding of excitement and apprehension as she found herself glancing down at her phone, waiting for a response from Jake. Each passing minute stretched out painfully, and her mind spiraled with all the worst-case scenarios. Her legs carried her through the crowded streets, but her thoughts were still wrestling with her choices. What if she had completely misjudged Jake? She recalled his easy confidence, the way he described the art world with an undeniable passion, the type of determination she coveted but felt so distant in her own life. Yet, the more she considered the message she sent, the more empowered she began. Hadn't she just stepped out of her comfort zone back at the gallery? This could be another opportunity to shape her future. With resolve, she slipped into a nearby art cafe, the earthy sense of coffee mingling with paint fumes creating a heady atmosphere. There, she chose a seat by the window. As she sat, she opened her sketchbook again, her pencil dancing on the paper while she created fluid lines and abstract shapes that expressed her internal struggle. Drawing felt automatic. It was a conversation with herself, a way to silence the cacophony of self-doubt echoing through her mind. Fragments of her journey surfaced. Memories of crumpled sketches thrown away out of fear of failing, of passing up exhibitions because she didn't believe she belonged. But tonight felt different. She drew with the intensity of someone who understood the weight of her dream, the longing to be seen and to share her voice through art. Each stroke of her pencil became more confident, as though the act of creation itself was an affirmation of her worthiness. Minutes turned into hours, and as she captured a raw interpretation of her emotions, she felt a strange sense of clarity as the cafe began to empty around her. Her phone buzzed, and instinctively she glanced down. Jake's name lit up the screen, and the world paused for a second. The contents of the message set her heart rattling. He was interested. They were set to meet for lunch the next day. A blend of exhilaration and anxiety surged through her veins. She considered her art, the very reason she now found herself here, willing to step beyond barriers she had built over the years. What would this meeting entail? Would she be able to convey her aspirations, or would insecurities flare up, causing her to retreat into familiar shadows? Determined to make this opportunity count, Emily spent the night preparing, psyching herself up to propel herself into the art scene she had always admired from a distance. The meeting was not simply about gathering information. It was a chance for her to redefine her limits and push against the restrictions that had held her back. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a dawning realization washed over her. She could no longer ignore her ambitions, her desire to create. With every scratch and every new connection, she felt the shackles of her past loosen. It was time to claim her narrative. Her breathing steadied as she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow will be different." She would confront the shadows of doubt with the light of possibility guiding her way. As sleep wrapped around her, a provoking thought crept in. What if Jake had insights that could transform her understanding of art and her place within it? Would he understand her artistic vision, or would she struggle to articulate her dreams? This encounter was more than casual. It could ignite a pivotal moment in her life, one that demanded courage and clarity. The next day awaited, drenched in uncertainty yet imbued with potential. The sun was setting on the past. The dawn of something new lay just ahead. The next morning arrived with a crispness that sent a shiver through Emily as she prepared to meet Jake. She dressed carefully, each item of clothing chosen not only for its aesthetic appeal, but as a reflection of her evolving confidence. The bold red scarf felt like a statement. She was ready to take a stand, to be seen. As she walked the streets toward the cafe, she rehearsed the conversation in her mind. Would she discuss her inspirations, talk about her struggles, or would she cautiously navigate each question, wringing the life out of her own dreams? The potential for self-sabotage loomed heavily as she mulled over what to say, grappling with the pressure to appear collected while nerves fluttered her stomach. Stepping into the cafe, the familiar aroma of coffee enveloped her, calming her racing thoughts momentarily. She scanned the room and spotted Jake seated at a table in the corner. His presence was magnetic, a contrast to her swirling self-doubt. He glanced up as she approached, a warm smile breaking across his face that sent a ripple of comfort through her. "Emily, you made it," he greeted, standing to wrap her in a friendly hug. The warmth of his embrace broke through her nervous shell, and they sat down as she exhaled a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Their conversation flowed easily at first. Jake spoke animatedly about the art scene, his words laced with enthusiasm. The way he described art felt like a passionate dance, complex yet simple enough to appreciate. Emily absorbed every word, but as the dialogue progressed, she felt the weight of her own reticence creeping back. She wondered if her responses could measure up to his insights. "So, what about you? What do you want to do in art?" Jake asked, his gaze unwavering, waiting for her to respond. Emily hesitated, her fork teasing the edge of her plate. Should she reveal her true aspirations, or would the admission only confirm her insecurities? I'm working on finding my voice, she replied slowly, trying to gather her cascading thoughts. I've always been hesitant about showcasing my work. I guess I just didn't think I was ready. Ready? Jake echoed with a smirk. You won't know if you're ready until you jump in, Emily. That's the beauty of art. It's about expression, not perfection. His words struck a chord within her. A stronger self, one who insisted on authenticity, began to emerge from the shadows of self-doubt. As they continued to talk, Jake's approach to art sparked something profound in her. He extolled the virtues of vulnerability, the way art could become more potent through the lens of authenticity. What if, she pondered, she could take those words to heart, embrace her unfiltered vision rather than hiding it behind layers of fear? Emily felt a flicker of determination blossomed inside her. Do you really believe that? That vulnerability makes art stronger? Absolutely, he nodded vigorously. It's about connecting with others. If you can share your real self, you'll resonate with experiences beyond your own. That's when you find your audience. The realization gripped her tightly. The articulation of vulnerability was a fear she had harbored for far too long. Instead of shying away, she needed to challenge that fear, embrace it. What would happen if she committed herself to that leap? Would it change the contours of her artistic journey? Their conversation continued, and with every passing moment, Emily felt herself morphing. She began to share snippets of her own art pieces, her sketches, and the stories behind them. As she did, something shifted inside. The words flowed freely, no longer stuck in her throat. Before she realized it, the discussion wasn't just about her career aspirations, but about who she genuinely was as an artist and a person. And while she could sense the ground beneath her shifting, uncertainty still lurked. Was this newfound courage enough to change her future? As she and Jake wrapped up their meeting and exchanged contact information, Emily's mind raced with possibilities. She could continue to nurture this connection, this blooming sense of identity that felt unprecedented. Yet, as she stepped out into the bustling street once more, another thought crashed into her mind with force. How far was she truly willing to go with this new resolve? What would it mean to confront her past head-on? Could she really risk failure for the sake of authenticity? The questions gnawed at her with urgency. Change was no longer an abstract concept. It was fast becoming her reality. And she wasn't sure if she was prepared for the whirlwind that lay ahead. With newfound determination, Emily walked on, each step reverberating with the weight of possibility, the taste of courage electrifying every nerve in her body. But looming just ahead was a challenge that would test her commitment, thrusting her deeper into the realm of her fears. What awaited her next would not only redefine her perspective on art, but on everything she thought she knew about herself. The hours following her meeting with Jake blurred together, each moment steeped in introspection and self-reevaluation. Emily stood in her small studio that evening, surrounded by stark white canvases and half-finished sketches. The urge to transform her newfound insights into tangible art was almost overwhelming. Yet her fear held her captive. She stared at an empty canvas, its surface reflecting her hesitation. What would she paint tonight? A melange of emotions churned inside her, clashing like the colors left untouched on her palette. A voice inside urged her to express the courage she had felt earlier, the vibrant ability to be honest in her art. But as she lifted her brush, the familiar wave of self-doubt crashed over her, paralyzing her creativity. Was it truly that simple? Could vulnerability be portrayed with mere brushstrokes? The idea seemed audacious, almost foolish. Yet Jake's words echoed in her mind. Art is about connection. If she wanted to reach her audience, she had to let them see her truth. Emily inhaled deeply, grounding herself. It was a sense of urgency she hadn't felt before, one that pushed her to confront whatever had kept her muted for years. The complexities of her past, failures and rejections, slipped into her consciousness, whispering warnings. Would displaying her true self only invite criticism? Would it be worth the risk? With a determined flick of her wrist, she began to mix colors. Reds, blues, and yellows sprawled across the palette like her emotions. Each stroke of the brush felt like a step toward liberation. Slowly, the chaos on the canvas transformed into abstract shapes that visually represented her tumultuous journey. The confusion of emotions, the fear of judgment, and ultimately the burgeoning realization of her strength. As she worked, time lost meaning. The once familiar surroundings faded away, replaced by something more profound. She felt the connection to the canvas as both creator and critic vanish. Her focus shifted inward, harnessing pieces of herself she had previously deemed too fragile to display. The paints glided effortlessly, each layer entwining her thoughts into something real. When Emily finally stepped back, breathless from the process, she was surprised by the vibrancy of her creation. It was raw yet compelling, an honest depiction of her current journey. The vivid colors reflected her state of mind, chaotic, optimistic, and waiting for something new to unfold. But even in her moment of triumph, the nagging doubts resurfaced. How would she share this? Would her audience perceive it as she intended? What if they misinterpreted her vulnerability as weakness? The fear of inadequacy stirred anew, reminding her that commitment to her art was not just an act of self-expression, but also a potential public examination. Later that week, she returned to the cafe, searching for Jake. As she paced nervously outside, the looming decision to showcase her work weighed heavily on her. She couldn't shake the feeling that the personal revelations she had embraced still hadn't reached their full potential. What would it mean to stand in front of an audience and present her art, the real, unguarded pieces of herself? The moment she walked through the door, she spotted Jake in a discussion with an older gentleman, animated conversations swirling around them. As he noticed her approach, his face lit up, welcoming her into their realm. She hesitated, wanting to confide in him about her latest piece, yet the gravity of exposing herself felt monumental. "Hey, Emily, I was just telling Mark here about your work," Jake said. "You should share it with everyone. It's time, right?" Yeah, I think so," Emily stumbled, the weight of his observation making her cheeks flush with uncertainty. Mark smiled encouragingly, but the impulse to retreat was strong. The invitation to dive deeper into this newfound part of her identity resonated within her. Yet terrifying. Would she truly seize the chance? Would her brushstrokes carry the bravery she strove to embody, or would they falter under the weight of public scrutiny? Challenge loomed ahead, an upcoming gathering of local artists where she could present her piece. The idea filled her with an impulse she couldn't ignore. But with it came the ominous question. Was she ready to confront the world, to let others see the woman she was becoming? As she grappled with the decision, Emily realized that perhaps this was her moment to test her resolve against the backdrop of her fears. In the swirling chaos of her thoughts, one truth emerged. The next few days could carve a path she had only dreamed of. Outside the cafe, the late afternoon sun painted the sky with hues of gold and orange, mirroring the stirring passion within her. With each heartbeat, doubt coalesced into determination. Something was about to shift, but would she have the strength to step forward when the moment arrived? Would she seize the opportunity or remain confined in her self-imposed boundaries? As daggers of uncertainty danced in her gut, Emily knew she was teetering on the cusp of revelation. Her identity was no longer just an artist, but a storyteller brave enough to share her journey. The time had come for her to choose. Emily spent the next few days oscillating between motivation and doubt. The canvas that had once felt like an empty abyss now pulsed with her emotions, but the thought of publicly unveiling her work tightened the knots in her stomach. She followed a routine, morning coffee, a fresh application of paints, and the ever-reliable spiral notebook where she documented her thoughts. Yet the closer she got to the evening of the gathering, the more her breath quickened. Despite understanding that her art reflected her truth, the idea of external scrutiny intensified her anxiety. What if her vulnerable exposure did not resonate? What if it fell flat? Each anxious thought spiraled, urging her to reconsider sharing her piece entirely. "Be honest," she whispered to her reflection one morning, her fingers tracing the contours of the work that crowned her desk. "This is about you, not them." The rationality began to settle into her psyche. Emily turned to sketching again. Each curve of her pencil pulled her deeper into the labyrinth of her experience, exploring the truth that had both invigorated and terrified her. She considered the details, the emotions she had expressed, and the audience she hoped would connect with them, and felt a surge of courage. "Do it for you," she commanded silently. "Everything else is secondary." As the gathering approached, she decided to practice speaking about her art. She spoke into the mirror, articulating how the colors represented not just fear, but resilience, how the chaotic forms mirrored the turbulence of her thoughts and the ultimate harmony she sought. Each rehearsal peeled away layers of insecurity, replacing them with a foundation of confidence. Yet even during practice, visions of judgment haunted her. "You're not a real artist," echoed one inner voice, reminding her of failures in past showings. But Emily countered, recognizing that real artistry was born from struggling and learning, not perfection. The day finally arrived. Emily slipped into a modest black dress, one that showcased her personality without being ostentatious. She arrived at the gallery venue, her heart racing, the ambient sounds of chatter echoing through the air. People stood around clusters of artwork, eyes glittering with curiosity. As she approached the exhibition area, each vibrant piece seemed to glow, speaking to her fortitude in ways she had never experienced before. With a deep breath, Emily approached the far corner where her work hung, the colors pulsing dramatically in the warm light. "Just breathe," she reminded herself. She stood alongside attendees admiring various works, nodding and sharing smiles, trying to conceal her turbulence. Her painted piece awaited her, silently beckoning her to take the final step, the actual confrontation of her own fears. "Is that your piece?" a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was a woman in a vibrant scarf, inquisitive and warm. "It's beautiful." Emily's heart jolted. "Thank you," she managed, a hint of surprise coating her reply. "It's very personal, actually." "I can feel that," the woman replied, moving closer to inspect the brushstrokes. "What's your inspiration?" A familiar battle began raging within her, pulling at the threads of self-doubt, but also igniting an unfamiliar flame. This moment felt crucial. She could either withdraw back into guarded silence or confront her fears head-on. "It's about embracing vulnerability," she found herself saying, voice unsteady yet resolute. "I wanted to show that chaotic foundation can lead to strength." The woman nodded profoundly. "That's a brave message. It resonates." Encouraged, Emily felt the battle begin shifting in her favor. The warmth of the woman's understanding began to mend her vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a strength. People continued to gather around, and she felt an exhilarating rush sparking within her, a sense of belonging she never expected. As the night unfolded, more inquisitive souls approached. Each conversation chipped away at Emily's conditioning, the need for approval, the fear of rejection. She increasingly realized that each connection was a step towards self-acceptance. The more she spoke, the more her confidence solidified. Yet, deep inside, a single unsettling thought lingered. Would this newfound acceptance hold if the audience grew larger? The answer to her own questions loomed as the night deepened, challenging her to confront yet another layer of her identity. As she watched the enthusiastic discussions unfold around her painting, the path to her artistic evolution revealed itself, The stage for unveiling her true self was set, but what would it require of her next? Emily stood on the precipice of a new chapter, her heart racing as each conversation pulled her deeper into a whirlpool of unexpected self-discovery. People continued to drift toward her piece, their appreciation and curiosity slicing through her earlier hesitations like a warm knife through butter. Yet, as their eyes lit with recognition and intrigue, a single thought gnawed at her. Was this validation a fleeting moment, or was it the beginning of a sustained belief in herself? She felt a flutter in her chest, a mixture of enthusiasm and anxiety as she pondered the implications of her work resonating with others. Every engaging dialogue became a mirror, reflecting a version of herself she hadn't dared to acknowledge before, a version that was capable, strong, unafraid. But the moment also came with shadows. What if the whispers of her past failures returned like specters to haunt this budding confidence? "Such emotion in your strokes," another patron remarked, tearing Emily from her reverie. This voice belonged to a man in a tailored suit, his presence commanding yet approachable. "You clearly understand the struggle of vulnerability." "Thank you," she replied, searching for her ground. "It's something I've been working through in my own life." "Art often mirrors its creator," he said thoughtfully, peering closely at the hues and shapes. "I'm especially taken by the boldness of the reds. They evoke a deeper passion that connects with the darker undertones. Can you tell me more about this juxtaposition?" In that moment, Emily realized the difference between the artist she used to admire from a distance and herself. She was no longer just an observer. This was her creation, her story on display. Her voice, quivering at first, found strength within the heart of her narrative. "The reds represent the raw intensity of fear," she began, "and the calmer blues juxtapose that with a quest for peace, a resolution." As she spoke, the initial uncertainty morphed into clarity. The man's intent gaze encouraged her, prompting her to peel back another layer. "It signifies the chaos within me that I've learned to embrace rather than shy away from, a conscious decision to exist within the tension rather than evade it." The man almost smiled, his dark eyes glimmering with appreciation. Indeed, true strength lies in facing internal chaos. It's where creative resilience takes root. Their interaction paved the way for a profound realization. The more she shared, the more she unraveled the tangled threads of self-doubt. Yet, it also raised a critical point. Was her past truly behind her, or was it skirting just out of view, preparing to launch a counter-assault? As the evening proceeded, Emily felt bolstered by the conversations, but still quietly wrestled with lingering insecurities. Each compliment bathed her in warmth, but there was a stark contrast between the external validation and the internal unease, whispering shadows of unworthiness. A familiar voice crept into her mind, deep-rooted and persistent. "What makes you think you deserve this?" With each returning doubt, Emily grasped a flicker of determination she hadn't felt before. This was no longer solely about artistic value. It was becoming a powerful reflection of her embracing her identity. She stood taller, engaging with each passerby, sharing stories of her journey. Each reply coaxed out fragments of her that she had kept tucked away in the dark. As the evening drew to a close, Emily noticed the man from earlier watching her from afar, talking to another group. There was an air of authority around him. Did he possess insight beyond the surface? But the fleeting moments of connection were now behind her, and her mind swirled with questions. What if this was just the beginning? Would she risk reaching out, diving deeper into potential mentorship, guidance, or more profound artistry? Amidst her swirling thoughts, her gaze met the man's once more. A small smile danced on his lips, igniting something within her. A spark of courage, the urge to reach beyond what felt known and venture into uncharted territories. With renewed vigor, she decided she would seek him out. This could be her opportunity not just for artistic growth, but for a broader evolution in her life. But as Emily took a step forward, her heart hammered audibly. Would she find clarity or plunge into the shadows of uncertainty again? As the closing lights began to flicker on the gallery walls, one question loomed large in Emily's mind. Was she ready to embrace the potential risks of reaching for more? Or would she succumb to the comfort of familiarity? Emily swallowed hard, her feet glued to the spot as her mind raced through scenarios. What if the man was not just an artistic observer, but someone with the power to reshape her trajectory? Potentially a mentor, a guide, an ally in her metamorphosis from self-doubt to creative expression. She felt the pull of ambition and fear colliding within her. Gathering her resolve, she stepped forward, weaving through small groups still animatedly discussing the art. With every stride, the chatter around her faded, leaving her alone with her thoughts, the rhythm of her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Each step mirrored the rebellion of her spirit against the apprehensions that lingered like shadows at dusk, watchful, ready to pounce. As she approached, the tailored suit dominated her view, and the man's stature exuded confidence tempered by genuine interest. He turned, his dark eyes meeting hers, a flicker of recognition igniting the air between them. She hesitated, the bold words she had crafted vanishing from her mind. "Emily," she finally managed, extending a hand that trembled despite her best efforts. "Male," he introduced himself, shaking her hand firmly, his gaze unyielding. "I was very impressed with your piece." "Thank you," she replied, her voice steadier this time. "What you said about the juxtaposition resonated with me. I think it's something I'm just beginning to understand within myself." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You see, art is not merely what is painted or sculpted. It is born from us, our struggles, our aspirations. What do you want your art to convey?" The question hung heavy, a challenge wrapped in sincerity, forcing her to confront the raw intentions behind her creations. "I wanted to show that embracing vulnerability, this can lead to a deeper understanding of oneself," she articulated, feeling the walls around her slowly crumble. "Art has been a refuge for my own chaos." "Ah, chaos," he mused, the corner of his lips twitching in an echo of a smile. "You may not know it yet, but embracing that chaos is the key to connecting deeply with every facet of your life. I could help you with this journey if you allow it." A rush of exhilaration and trepidation coursed through her. Was this it? The opportunity she had sought without even realizing it? "Is that what you do? Help artists find their voice?" "I assist talent in shaping their paths, whether that means honing their craft or navigating the business side of artistry," he said, a glint in his eye that seemed to probe deeper. "Your work shows promise, but remember, confidence is tethered to the structure you give it." Emily felt a ripple of transformations already underway within her. Confidence was an evolving organism, the erosion of which left memories caked in the dust of self-doubt. "What do you suggest I do?" she asked, a strategy forming in her mind, eager to grasp every thread of wisdom he might offer. "First," he said, slowly, "assess what is holding you back. Often, it's the fear of not being enough. Then, create a plan to confront that fear. Experiment with new styles, push boundaries, expose your vulnerabilities in layers of paint. The world awaits your full story." She nodded, words stacking like blocks within her heart. "I want to explore that. I want to connect, not just with art, but with myself." "Good," Mael replied, the satisfied gleam in his eyes reminiscent of an architect surveying a grand design. "Each step, the risks and the rejections, will be your growing pains. Remember this: every great artist has faced obstacles that define their journey." Gazing into his steady demeanor, she felt a convergence of clarity and fear. There were no guarantees in this venture, only the raw potential for artistic evolution. Would she dive into the chaos, risking everything for something brighter on the other side? Or stand still, threatening to let the shadows consume her? Just as she began to gather her resolve, the clinking of glasses and whispers of admiration erupted around them. In that moment of distraction, a hidden part of Emily stirred, a surge of tenacity that compelled her forward. "What if I want to make this more than art?" she asked quietly, her voice barely breaking through the cacophony. Mael leaned in closer, his expression transforming into a fierce intensity. "Then we'll forge ahead together. But remember, growth requires vulnerability. Are you ready for the challenge?" His question cut deep, the weight of her past mingling with the thrill of opportunity. If she accepted, it would mean confronting her fears head-on. But not all battles were fought in isolation. Here was an ally, someone who saw her potential. Tonight could be a pivotal moment, a reopening into the world that had once felt so daunting. As Emily held her breath, a thrilling notion flared inside her. If she took this risk, who would she become? And would she ultimately face her past or find the strength to mold her destiny? Drawing in a deep breath, she took a step closer, prepared to embrace the challenge, but an echo of uncertainty whispered at the edge of her thoughts. Was she truly ready to dismantle her defenses and expose the artist beneath the surface? The night held its breath, waiting for her decision. Emily's heart was a pendulum, swinging between exhilaration and trepidation. As she gathered herself for the leap she was about to take, she glanced at Mael, whose calm demeanor inspired an unexpected wave of courage. His challenging gaze seemed to beckon her, urging her to shed her fears, but a shadow of doubt flickered within her. What if confronting her vulnerability was unlike anything she had faced before, overwhelming her instead of empowering her? Yet, the potential for growth loomed like an open door, and she felt an inexplicable pull to step through. "I want to be ready," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "Let's do this. I want to explore the chaos." Mael smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling with unmasked enthusiasm. "Excellent. Let's start with something small, yet profound. Define what chaos means to you in practical terms. Find a starting point in your current work." Chaos. What a complex word. It conjured images of her past layers of unresolved feelings, the tumults between her artistry and her self-esteem. For years, she had kept her art within safe boundaries. Now, standing beside this inspiring figure, she sensed the boundaries had to shift, to stretch, if she wanted to truly embrace her voice. "What if I want to incorporate pieces of myself into the art?" she asked, biting her lip. "Would that be considered chaotic?" Mael nodded, his interest piqued. "Precisely. Authenticity sometimes manifests itself in raw, unfiltered emotions. Consider using your personal history as the palette. What colors emerge when you reflect on your journey? What shapes take form?" A pause settled over them, and Emily felt the energy shift, transforming the cacophony surrounding them into a muffled backdrop. She began to envision a series of pieces reflecting her own evolution, each one a fragment of her past, both beautiful and haunting. It was an unsettling prospect, yet it flickered with potential. "What is something you've always wanted to express but didn't?" Mael pressed, gently, as if unraveling her tightly woven defenses. As she pondered, a memory surfaced, a series of sketches crafted during her adolescent years, depicting moments of isolation. She had tucked them away, buried beneath years of self-doubt. "I used to draw about feeling lost, like a ghost haunting my own life," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then let's allow that ghost to be seen. Take it beyond the sketches. Create a large canvas or a series that embodies those lost moments." "This be your theme," Mael suggested, his tone encouraging her to embrace what once felt shameful. Living through her lost moments again would challenge her. Yet, there was a tantalizing burden that ignited her willpower, to transform her pain into something more profound, to mold it in a way that became a canvas for others to connect with. "I will," she boldly affirmed, the determination settling in her gut. I'll begin with the sketches, transform them into something volatile and real. Mail's nod was accompanied by an approving smile. Good. Start risking your comfort. Shift from sketch to paint, from isolation to connection. Document your process and don't shy away from sharing the battle, even the fear of vulnerability. As their conversation drew on, layers of excitement unfolded within her mind. Emily envisioned gathering courage, wielding a brush with fervor, colors intertwining in chaotic splendor. Let's meet regularly to discuss progress, Mail proposed, pulling her back momentarily from her artistic reverie. Accountability fuels growth and fosters ambition. The agreement sparked an electric current within her. Setting a structure stoked a flicker of resolve. Each meeting would not only serve as an analysis of her artistic evolution, they would also become an exploration of her transformation. Yet as she emerged from their conversation, the weight of real commitment settled in her chest. Each piece would not only depict chaos, but also highlight a journey. She stared down at the remnants of self-doubt that lingered in her heart. Would she truly be exposing such raw pieces of herself? Just as the uncertainty started to bloom again, she locked eyes with Mail. Seeing the unwavering faith he had in her, she felt a surge of energy. Perhaps this partnership would guide her forward, unraveling her hidden strengths in the process. Remember, Emily, chaos may scatter, but it can also create, he reminded her gently, grounding her in resolve. Stepping back, she sought the promise of the path ahead. But even as she mentally prepared, whispers of apprehension teased her resolve. How would she unveil the vulnerable threads of her past? Would she break through her self-imposed barriers, or would she find herself entangled in fear? The real challenge awaited her, and she stood teetering on the brink, ready to dive in. All eyes seemed to hold their breaths at that precipice, hers caught between excitement and uncertainty. What awaited her on the other side of this chaotic journey? As weeks turned into months, Emily Johnson transformed her fears into vibrant brushstrokes on the canvas. Each piece she created became a visceral representation of her journey, an exploration of lost shadows brought to life through art. The themes of chaos mingling with authenticity transcended mere expressions. They became her declaration of resilience. In her studio, walls adorned with her progress, she felt a sense of belonging that once eluded her. The vibrant palette reflected the tumult of her emotions. The deep reds and soft blues merged with the yellows of hope and the greens of self-acceptance. This chaotic dance solidified not only her identity as an artist, but also her competence within the art world. Through numerous discussions and critiques, Mael stood as her mentor, guiding her through the labyrinthian world of artistry and self-discovery. He provided constructive feedback, encouraging her to delve beyond surface observations and genuinely challenge herself. Emily found herself confronting her past, piecing together her adolescent sketches that once depicted isolation and introspection into bold collections bursting with emotion. This allowed her to integrate her history into her current work, creating a narrative that spoke to many. Weeks of doubt transformed into days of empowerment. The once uncertain artist, now a confident creator ready to declare her voice. With Mael's guidance, she began actively participating in local exhibitions, her artwork becoming a conversation piece that ignited discussions among attendees. The more she shared, the more she realized her vulnerability was her strength, a powerful tool that resonated with others navigating their own journeys. The tipping point arrived when she was invited to showcase her collection at a gallery renowned for exhibiting emerging artists. The weight of her anxiety mingled with excitement as she hung her work, each piece telling a story of transformation. Friends and supporters rallied behind her, with Jake among them, marveling at the depth of her evolution. He had become a sounding board, offering encouragement and admiration for her newfound strength. The night of the exhibition was electric. Individuals filed into the gallery, eyes bright with anticipation. As they watched her work, heartfelt discussion sparked, emotions flowed, and connection blossomed. Emily felt a surge of fulfillment as she shared how she reclaimed her narrative through each piece. She had become not just an observer, but a pivotal part of the dialogue, a voice intertwining with the stories of others. Amidst the vibrant crowd, Mael approached her, his genuine pride evident. "You've done remarkable work, Emily. You've harnessed your chaos, creating art that speaks volumes about vulnerability and resilience. You've transformed into an artist whose voice simply cannot be ignored." Her heart swelled with newfound confidence. She had not only conquered the doubts that had haunted her, but had woven them into the very fabric of her art. Here she stood, a recognized artist, applauded not just for her aesthetic, but for her authenticity. As the evening drew to a close, attendees lined up to speak with her, sharing stories of their own struggles and triumphs. Emily relished the moment, exchanging smiles as people found connections in her work. There, in the swirling ambience of admiration and kinship, she realized that she belonged. The final accolade came as she received an invitation to collaborate on an upcoming art project with Mael, a chance to intertwine her personal growth with professional recognition. This marked not only a pivotal achievement in her career, but a testament to how far she had come. She was no longer the hesitant artist. She was a voice of inspiration, a beacon for those needing encouragement to embrace their truth. With everything she had accomplished, Emily emerged not just as an artist, but as a formidable force, seasoned by vulnerability, rich with recollection, and ready to engage the world through her art. She had achieved the recognition she longed for, but more importantly, she had proven to herself that art could transform not just canvases, but lives. The chaotic journey she embraced had honed her into an artist of authenticity and courage, breaking free from the shackles of self-doubt and emerging brightly illuminated by her own truth. And now, in that beautiful crossroads of art and personal growth, the future held endless potential, as she prepared to step boldly into the next chapter of her artistic narrative, armed with the belief that her voice mattered. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.